Nothing says Christmas in London more than seeing A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and this particular stage adaptation is in its 8th consecutive year of running at the Old Vic, which means that they must be getting something right. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you 5 reasons why this is a must-see Christmas special. If this is your first time on my channel, then welcome. My name is Christina and I'm on a mission to see 52 shows in London this year, and this is the channel where I'm sharing my experiences, tips, and all things creativity in London, and if you like the sound of it, then make sure to subscribe. So what is A Christmas Carol about? For anyone who doesn't know, this is a novella written by Charles Dickens in 1843, set in Victorian London. And fun fact is that Charles Dickens was actually based in Southwark and Lambeth area where the Old Vic Theatre is. So basically by going to see this at the Old Vic, you're experiencing also a little bit of that history alongside. In terms of the plot, A Christmas Carol follows Ebenezer Scrooge, who is this very miserable and cold-hearted man who doesn't have a lot of empathy for people around him, for those who have less than him, for those who are there to share Christmas joy. Basically, he just wants to get rid of everyone and he just wants to be on his own, and he pretty much wants Christmas to pass by and no one to bother him. So Ebenezer Scrooge is the Grinch before Grinch. But what happens is that he gets visited by the ghost of his business partner, Jacob Marley, and he warns him about 3 ghosts who are going to come and visit him, and that is the ghost of Christmas past, Christmas present, and yet to come. And from that point onwards, we embark on the adventure of understanding why Ebenezer Scrooge has become the way that he is, and how his future might look like if he stays the way that he is. By talking to the ghosts of Christmas past, Christmas present, and yet to come, he realizes all the people that he has hurt alongside, and he understands that this is not the life that he wants to lead for as long as he has left to live. So he does this plot twist and becomes a very generous and lovely man, and this is kind of his way of redeeming himself. There's much more to the story, and it taps into family relationships because Scrooge and his father didn't have a good relationship, and his father was emotionally unavailable, and then also he had this like very sad love story that happened to him. So all these things have caused for Scrooge to become the way that he is, which kind of allows us spectators to empathize with him a little bit. But given that this is written by Charles Dickens, all of this is colored by very much a social commentary on what was happening in Victorian London at the time, about the big division between the rich and the poor, about people who don't have anything to eat on Christmas Day. And it was actually really amazing to see how much of it resonates to this day. Which brings me to my first point, and that is that this Christmas classic is relevant nowadays more than ever. It is pretty impressive that a piece of work was written in 1843, and in 2024 people still go to see it and feel like that this very much resonates. This story is a very timely reminder of the world that we live in, of the divisions that we have in the society, and just the fact that certain people have so much and some have nothing. And it's a really good reminder that we should be more giving and just generally aware of what's happening around us and be kinder to each other. And this is the biggest message of this story, and it's actually really interesting that when you go into the theater, and even if you know what the plot is and how it's going to turn out, once again you get reminded of some very basic human things that we almost forget about because it is so busy, the world that we live in, the amount of time that we have to talk to other people, and how much we're all in our bubbles. Knowing that this story has been going strong for the centuries, it just almost transcends the time as an aspect. If you think that this is a story that Charles Dickens performed in the streets of London in the 19th century, not that far away from this theater, it almost bends the perception of time. And with all this in mind, I think if you're looking for a little bit of Christmas magic, this is where you are going to find it. And if you have love for London and you're visiting London during Christmas period, then this is something that is going to make you connect to the city even more, which is something that I really loved. The second thing that makes this show very special is the importance of music for the story development. And while this is not a musical, it's a play, music plays a really important part. Also putting this into a broader context of the influence that this story has had in terms of reigniting certain Christmas traditions, such as Christmas Christmas carols, and all those ways that we take today as just a given when it comes to celebrating Christmas. In the 19th century London, that was not the case. And Christmas carols weren't something that people would necessarily want to hear during Christmas time. But with this story, Christmas carols are very much back at the top of the agenda. And the most beautiful thing is that the cast and the musicians in the play really make them very much the central focus of this piece, but in a very subtle way. So if you like Christmas carols, there are plenty of them which you can enjoy. Just from the moment when you enter into the theater, you can see a few musicians on stage who are bringing the atmosphere and Christmas spirit, and it is really beautiful to just from the get-go be transported into this world. And then throughout the play, there are handbells and some carols that are performed that way. There's also a lot of singing, but all of this is packaged up in that beautiful Christmas present, and it just all fits together really nicely. Besides the cast on stage who are also either playing the handbells or they are singing, there is a group of musicians who are there not only just to perform the carols but the music throughout the whole show. And this is really one of the aspects that make this show as magical as possible. At the very end, they also performed one beautiful carol, and it was conducted by the musical director, and it was such a beautiful moment in the show. So the power of music really elevates this story even a step further and makes you feel even more Christmassy by seeing some of the most beloved Christmas classics. The third brilliant thing about this show is the immersive nature of it, and it is immersive just as much as you need it to be immersive, but stay with me for this one. Basically, this stage adaptation is challenging in itself because this is not the only stage adaptation or reading of this work that you can see during Christmas time. It is super popular in London to go and listen to the reading of A Christmas Carol, or there are like different adaptations or maybe sometimes even parodies of A Christmas Carol. So it is everywhere. So when it comes to putting this on stage, which is a very well-known story and beloved story, I think the creative team has such a big responsibility to make it stand out in some way. And I think the way that this adaptation stood out to me is firstly by its stage positioning. So if you've ever been to the Old Vic, normally most of the productions that I've seen there are just, you have the stage and then you have the audience on the other side. So like very classical, typical theater layout. But for this production, they have put the stage, which almost looks like, imagine like a runway type of thing, that goes all the way through the theater. And you have the stage where the stage normally is, but then all the way through the theater, you have kind of this like runway space where a lot of cast members are going in and out of. When the ghost of Jacob Marley comes that way, he comes in these chains, which are kind of pulling him back, and he's like walking towards Scrooge, and it's all happening on that element of the stage that is kind of going through the audience. And this is super impressive to see, especially because there are a lot of elements in the story that are spooky, and then by this layout you just feel like you're very close to the action, and it just feels a little bit more real, and you feel immersed without necessarily needing to interact with actors in any way. However, speaking of interaction, as soon as you enter into the theater, certain cast members are actually conversing with the audience, and when I was there, they were giving away oranges and they were kind of making chit chats, and they looked like just regularly dressed Victorian era people in London. And straight away from when you enter, you feel uplifted, and just by interacting with the members of cast, you feel like you're part of the story. And when it comes to seating is also like everywhere around the stage. So there are certain seats in the stall that will really make you feel like you're literally right in the middle of the story. There are also some seats on the stage. So if you can get any of those seats, this immersive element of this production will be even greater, and I would highly recommend it. I think it's a great production to be even more immersed and to really be close to the actors as possible. These are not the only immersive elements that you will experience. There is a moment in the show when it starts snowing and it looks so beautiful. I was actually at the back row of the stalls, so I didn't get any snow, but I saw a lot of people, and it was so beautiful seeing like snowflakes in their hair, and it was just so magical. And then there's also another element where there are actors who are on like both like balconies, and they're also like transferring some vegetables all the way from up at the top all the way to the stage using this like big white sheets, and it looks so fun. And there are also like a few more elements in the show that just make you feel like you are part of the cast at times. So all in all, it is such a beautifully staged piece that really brings you in. And what this took it even a step further and made you really involved is that at the end of the performance, John Sim, who is playing Scrooge, he has read out this letter about basically donations and how you can donate and what you can do, and you can kind of give donations on the way out. And it just made the story even more rounded because there was a tangible impact that if you donate will have on literally like local community. And I think all of these things are so well considered when it comes to this production. They just make it so much worth seeing and experiencing. What really helps this production stand out and have that immersive element is the set. And the set is pretty bare in a way because there are only 3 kind of door frames and that's about it. And all dynamics on stage are either achieved through light design or sound. And there were some really interesting elements where these doors need to close and open and there's no door handle, anything like that. But the actors are working with the sound engineer to synchronize the movement of closing the door or opening the door with the sound. And that was really impressive. I honestly don't even know how they rehearsed it. And this minimalist set design is almost opposite of what happens like at the ceiling because there are so many lanterns which make just that Christmas spirit and vibe like a bit more enhanced because they just looked very magical and beautiful, and it almost looks like you're in Harry Potter world. And this is actually not a coincidence because Jack Thorne is the mind behind this stage adaptation, and he is also the person who has adapted Harry Potter and the Cursed Child for stage in London. So if you in any way like this magical experience, then I think that you will almost feel this in A Christmas Carol a little bit too. And the 5th thing that makes this show great is the cast. As mentioned, they're very involved with welcoming the audiences, with making you feel like you're about to see a very special stage adaptation of this classic, and they really deliver on it. From every single person in that cast to the musicians, everyone was really invested in the story and making it really seem like the classic that it is. Like you go and see this play and you understand why this is such a quintessential piece of London history, of Christmas tradition, and how it has this very important universal message that every year we should be reminded of. John Sim is playing Ebenezer Scrooge, and he is a person you might know from Doctor Who and Grace. Also, there are a few child actors who are playing the role of Tim, and they are absolutely adorable. And then the rest of the cast is really engaging, with a lot of them playing multiple roles. There are also some elements where they're kind of running through the audiences, and this really makes you feel like you have that closeness to the actors that maybe you don't get to see in many shows. And I think for a show like this, bringing this story closer to the audiences, both like physically and metaphorically, is what makes it resonate. I have to admit that this is the show that I enjoyed more than I thought I would. I'm not particularly Christmassy person, but this has really made me excited about Christmas, and probably the closer you get to the Christmas, the more uplifted and the more Christmassy you will feel about it. So I am very pleasantly surprised about this stage adaptation, and I have a newfound love for this story, which I wasn't as close to before. So my warm recommendation is to go and check out tickets on the Old Vic website. You can see the show until the 4th of January, and tickets go for as low as £50. It is definitely a favorite Christmas classic, so the tickets are a little bit pricier, but don't forget that you can also go to the box office at the Old Vic and ask them or call them and see if there are any returns that you would be able to bag for slightly cheaper on the day. If you're looking for other recommendations on what to see during Christmas time in London, then I recommend you check out this video.